Hello everybody and welcome to the Race Notebook from the 2023 season opener, the Bahrain Grand Prix. And there we go, there's the podium being dismantled. I don't think the whole of it, with its kind of Cube V3 vibe, is going to be going to Saudi. I think the Saudis have probably got their own idea for a funky podium. It's probably just being de-rigged. But, well, it was a familiar result, wasn't it? And I say a familiar result because 7 days ago, that's exactly how testing ended, with all the long runs done for, tyres and fuel loads and all of that, and put through the computer and rinsed and washed a bit. The result from testing from the long runs would have been Verstappen first, Sergio Perez second, and Fernando Alonso third. And the result today, Verstappen first, Sergio Perez second, and Fernando Alonso third. So I don't suppose we should be surprised. I think where the intrigue comes and the interest comes today is the pace of Ferrari. Ferrari's story being quick enough, almost quick enough, but unreliable, and whether they are really in a position to challenge for the championship. And Mercedes, that is also the story. What is going on with Mercedes? Are we seeing a team in existential re-evaluating of their own belief in their abilities, a re-examination of where they go, an abandonment of everything they worked for the last 7-8 months about, and a searching for a new concept that the boss is demanding. Toto Wolff is demanding a new concept from his designers and his engineers, and what the response is going to be. Anyway, absolutely fascinating. But the other story of the day has to be Red Bull Racing, because they have exorcised the demons of Bahrain. They have not won here since Sebastian Vettel in 2013. So I think that's why it means so much. Obviously, when any team in F1 gets a 1-2, it means an awful lot. When you've got 1, 2, 3, how many of these have we got, Vlad? Why have we got these two? Whose are these two extra little ones here? What are they doing? What are they for?
This one's yours, Dad.
Well, the winner, second place, winning constructor. Who are these for? Are they to take home? Can you? They're going to kill me if I touch it. That also says first place. Are these the ones to take home?
First place, yeah.
You don't. Surely you get the big ones to take home. That also says first place. That's constructor. That's winner. There's checker. Anyway, look. Oh, they got 5 of them, so that's nice. So they're, it's always, as I say, it's always great when a team gets a 1-2, but to get a 1-2 when Max Verstappen has never won in Bahrain before, his bogey track, his nemesis track, and, all right, lad, and when the team haven't won in the hybrid era, it just feels special, I guess. And that's why we're about to see the photo. Well, I mean, we're about to. Obviously, we're not. While we're still figuring out what the extra 2 trophies are for, we're obviously not going to see the trophy, the photo. But I tell you what, we'll do some other teams and we'll come back for the trophy and not the champagne. What is it? What is it? Oh, it's rosewater. 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 Nice. Okay, good. So let's tell you how they did it today. Red Bull. You can carry on having a look around if you want, Lee. And they did it because they have the best car, and Max Verstappen is in the form of his life. As I say, his first win since Sebastian Vettel in 2013. Max finished 11 seconds ahead of Sergio Perez, and then both of them, Max finished 38 seconds to Alonso in P3, so I think he could have won by a minute if he'd won to. But got clean start. Sergio Perez got challenged off the start and lost out to the fast starting Charles Leclerc on the new soft tyre. That was Ferrari's plan, and it worked, but it didn't last for too long. Both went soft, hard on the strategy, which is a pretty aggressive strategy from Hannah Schmitz and her team up on the pit wall, but it really worked. And they kept racing, really. And Max had 13-second lead at the halfway mark. So you can tell by the full weight, if he carried that on, he would have had 26 seconds logically over Sergio Perez at the end of the race, but he didn't. He backed off massively, save everything at 11 seconds. And as for Sergio Perez, so Max led from start to finish. As for Sergio Perez, he retook P2 with a great move on Charles Leclerc on lap 26, and was closing up to Max Verstappen, sort of, as they just managed the cars back to the end. I know some of you have had questions about, well, how are we looking at such a dominant Red Bull when, I thought they were serving an aerodynamic testing ban under their cost cap, their agreed breach agreement under the cost cap regulation breach last year. So how come they're winning the race could win the race by 40 seconds? Well, you see, this car was already designed and settled on with all of the good bits in it when they got that aerodynamic testing penalty. So this car at the moment, as it is now, is unaffected by that penalty. The 7 million fine was something they paid. But what might happen later on is that when everybody starts to close up, seems a long prospect off now, but you know what I mean, the aerodynamic testing penalty might start to bite from mid-season on when they have to drop some time in the wind tunnel. But as Christian Horner and Helmut Marko said before, if they are disciplined and efficient with what they do, then they might get away with not having any meaningful penalty from that cost cap regulation breach of last year. Wow, that's a big forklift, isn't it? Is that a 60-tonner, Lee? Anyway, right, let's do Ferrari, shall we? And it was a DNF for Charles Leclerc with some kind of engine failure. They're not quite exactly sure what yet, but they just believe they know it's an engine failure, power unit failure. And it was P4 for Carlos Sainz. And Leclerc would have been P3. So Ferrari are pretty sure that Leclerc would have been able to hold on to P3 ahead of Fernando Alonso. I don't quite know whether I'd like to run that through that strategy computer that I told you about earlier, because Alonso, as he said, with a tyre delta, with fresher tyres at the end, might have got Leclerc. We don't know what would have happened. Anyway, Leclerc dropped out. But Ferrari do think that Leclerc had the pace on Alonso, which is the only bright thing about their day, really, because, you know, it's a good start from Charles Leclerc. Got that P2, as I said, from Sergio Perez. Sainz was pushed out wide and lost some time. Got done by Sergio Perez, but was running happily in P3. Was Leclerc before the power unit conked out. Sainz, tyre degradation was really his issue. The car is not quite there. He doesn't quite feel quite there on Leclerc's single lap pace. And then on the race pace, you know what the problem is. They eat their tyres. So let's see what happens when we get to a bit more of a favourable track on the tyres with a smoother surface. And this is something that the Pirelli tyres like. They like the Jeddah street circuit surface. And they don't degrade as much. They don't overheat like they do here with the rough Welsh granite surface. There's nothing against the Welsh granite. It's not its fault. It's just that that's the way it is. And so we'll see if Ferrari's tyre degradation is still there in a couple of weeks' time in Jeddah, then you know they're in trouble. But they hope that they won't be. And is it another year without a championship? Well, as another said earlier, there is a long way to go. And that was certainly Charles Leclerc's instincts when he came back and saw his team boss, Fred Vasseur, is to say, OK, we still have 22 races to go. It is a long season. Is Fred Vasseur allowed 1 year? Open question for you. Is Fred Vasseur allowed 1 year of not winning a championship, given that Ferrari still haven't won a driver's championship since 2007, Kimi Raikkonen, before the pressure mounts on him? Mattia Binotto wasn't really allowed that time. He was allowed some time as boss, but I think Fred Vasseur will be allowed 1 year or more to build the team up in his under his instruction before the pressure starts to build on him. Right, Mercedes, and as we've said, well, as Toto Wolff said, what did he call it? He said one of the hardest days, one of the worst days in racing. And, you know, that's because the reality has struck that they are the third quickest car. Sorry, no, they're not. They're the fourth quickest car in Formula One, because Lewis Hamilton was fifth today and George Russell seventh. And that is not going to win Lewis's 8th World Championship this year. I don't know whether he's writing it off mentally now. I don't think he can. How could he? He's encouraging the team to carry on and get on with it, as is Toto Wolff, as I said. He's going to task and inspire his team to build a new car. There is, after all, going to have to be a plan B. I don't think there was a plan B in the pipeline, but there's going to have to be a plan B now, because Toto Wolff has pretty much challenged his team to come up with a plan B. So let's see how it does. Let's see how long it takes them to get there. But in the end, the only thing they can do is keep scoring points, and they did that very well today. Good opening lap from both Lewis Hamilton and George Russell. He got past, good opening lap for both, but Hamilton particularly, he got past George Russell and Fernando Alonso, but then struggled with his fronts in the early stint. He both pitted early. Lewis stayed ahead of Fernando Alonso, even though the team had to admit the undercut from Fernando Alonso. So George was slightly sacrificed to protect Lewis Hamilton. from Fernando Alonso in the first stint. Actually, it was Valtteri Bottas who undercut both George Russell and Fernando Alonso in the first stint, courtesy of a very cheeky little strategy from Alfa Romeo Sauber. But anyway, he got past them. But yeah, they early stopped Lewis to avoid Fernando's undercut, but then Fernando got him. Lewis chased Sainz and finished 2.9 seconds behind Sainz in fifth. Sainz was fourth, of course, and Russell finished 1.3 seconds behind Lance Stroll, who was sixth. George Russell, seventh today. I've got to tell you that we're gearing up for the filming to start. Have you found a little bug, Lee? You found a little critter going under there? Has he got a plan B? Do you have a plan B, little fella? Do you know how to build a good Mercedes? Where are you? There he is. A little desert bug. Oh, it's like the kind of things you see in a movie, isn't it? Where's he going? Do you know how to build a fast car, mate? I could do with your help here. Watch out, Carl, there's a bug here. Yeah, watch out. He's gone your way. Give him a pass. He hasn't got a pass. He hasn't got a pass. Right. They're starting filming the Lewis Hamilton produced, Brad Pitt starred movie. I think the director of photography was here, or the production manager, or the production designer was here this weekend. And they're going to start filming it, and you're going to see them around. They built a camera car, apparently, a car with cameras on it, like in Top Gun. They've made some F-22s with some cameras in it. And they're going to start using the Grand Prix weekends to film the movie. I know. So watch out for that. I don't know when they're going to start, but apparently it's soon. And what else have I said? The Imola, you know about the Imola upgrade now. Toto Wolff said rather dismissively, well, I'm not going to get too excited by a 0.3 of a second upgrade coming in Imola. We need a plan B. So he's going to get it. He's the boss. That's what he's called for. He's going to get it. Alpine. Gasly, P9 from the back. And I think that is a jolly good drive from Pierre Gasly to get 2 points and nearly the fastest lap, although I'll tell you what happened. He was denied that by another cheeky move by Alfa Romeo Sauber, which I'll tell you about in a second. But that is a great drive from Pierre Gasly after disappointments qualifying from the back after he got his time deleted. To get P9 is a great start, and at least he's got 2 points because that's more than Esteban Ocon has today. Lined up on the grid wrongly, so the steward said. Esteban thinks it's extremely unfair, says he's always done that. As long as he didn't move in that box, he says there shouldn't be a penalty. Then they made mistakes in the pit stop where they worked on the car before. Then there was a speeding. 15-second stop-go pit stop really, in the end, meant that there was no point carrying on, and they pitted. Esteban Ocon retired the car, and he was a DNF. But great stuff from Pierre Gasly. Very solid debut from him. And it's more than you can say from McLaren, because they have had a really, really gutting day. And I don't know, at least the boys got some good pit stop practice. That's all you can say, because Lando Norris, I wrote it down here every time he made a stop, and I've crossed out 4, then I've crossed out 5, and then it's 6. Lando Norris had an unintended 6-stop strategy today, because not his fault and not McLaren's fault, because, well, they don't know whether it's purely a Mercedes fault because it's a Mercedes powertrain, power unit, and they've got, oh look, is that Fernando with some photos, Lee? Do you want to go and get some shots? I know we're doing him in part 2, but you might as well get some nice shots if he's there. And we're talking about Lando. But either it's a McLaren system, air system, that feeds the pneumatic system for the engine, or it's a Mercedes problem. But that's not one that they've had before, and it might not be in their control. But it means that there were no points and a lowly 17th for Lando Norris, who had to come into the pits every 10 laps to fill out the air bottle on his engine. And is a DNF for Oscar Piastri. Oscar's first race in 16 months. He had a good start, was running well, but he had an electrical problem which affected everything else, and he came into the pits. They couldn't restart the car even with a change of steering wheel. And are these just Fernando's mates who are getting pictures of him? That's a Spanish journalist who's getting a picture with him. Okay, good. I suppose why not? It was never got going again. But McLaren are happy enough with Oscar Piastri's pace, and they're hoping for better things when it comes to it. Is it anybody's chance to get a photo with Fernando? Got it, Lee? Yeah, good. All right, excellent. Right, on that mark, we will take a break, because I think Fernando, we've taken enough of his time. So join us again after the break, when we will tell you how the Matador, this man, the samurai warrior with the samurai tattoo on his back, actually made it to the podium. Join us in a bit for more Notebook. Hiya, welcome back to the race notebook from the 2023 season opener, the Bahrain Grand Prix, where a couple of the fastest lap today was scored by Zhou Guanyu. But I hear you ask, where did Zhou Guanyu finish? Well, the answer is 16th. And, well, you don't get a point for fastest lap if you finish outside the top 10, I hear you say. I say, no, you're right. But you can make sure that somebody else doesn't get a fastest lap. And Pierre Gasly, who up until that point was holding the fastest lap for Alpine, currently didn't get it because Zhou Guanyu got it, because they pitted Zhou Guanyu on the last lap, put a pair of set of soft tyres on, and sent him out to steal the fastest lap point away from Alpine. So nobody scored an extra point for fastest lap today because they nicked it off Alpine. I love it. I love that they already know down here that it's going to get nasty and close with Alpine in the championship, and they've had the foresight to think, you know what, we don't want to get to Aston Martin, to Abu Dhabi in a position where we're fighting over 1 point anymore. So let's just nick it off Alpine. Let's twist the knife. So I thought that was a nice idea. I mean, it wasn't a nice race for poor Zhou Guanyu, who had to pit. I mean, he wasn't going to score any points anyway, but Valtteri Bottas did. So that is actually a handful of points. I think is that 4 or 6 points for them? Great start from Valtteri Bottas, from 12th to P8, and then he was P9 as others moved up. But they said, don't worry about the Astons. Your race with Ocon, but then Ocon's race disintegrated by itself. And put your head down. He defended well, and then that was he couldn't do much about. No, he defended well from Gasly and finished ahead of him, did Valtteri Bottas. So brilliant race for him, P8. Zhou Guanyu was running okay, but as I say, was out of the points, and then had the last lap pit stop due to the strategic stealing it off Gasly, and that worked, and he was 16th. So he might be a little bit annoyed, Zhou Guanyu, but he has helped his team not rack up another points deficit to who they think they're going to be fighting with, Alpine, in the Constructors' Championship this year. And we can revisit the story of the test, the story of Formula One so far, the story of the Bahrain Grand Prix, and that is the plucky Silverstone team that was once Jordan, which was once Spiker, which was once Midland, which was once Force India, and then Racing Point, and is now the lofty heights of Aston Martin, are back on the podium. I know they've won races before, as Racing Point, as Force India, and all the rest of it. Force India? They never run a race Force India, did they? Anyway. And Fernando's, heaven knows he's been on the podium. But I think they're not going to get too excited about it, despite the selfies, because they intend on this being a regular occurrence. They intend on Fernando Alonso, who was third today, and Lance was sixth, on being a regular occurrence. He was hit at the beginning, said Lance Stroll at turn one. He thought it was George. It wasn't. It was Lance Stroll. And Alonso lost a couple of places early on to the two Mercs. He was closing on Lewis Hamilton in the second stint, but Merc defended with strategy, and that worked for them for a while. Lance undercut George Russell in the second stint for P7, which was good, with a good 2.6 second pit stop. Fernando pitted on lap 35, and then had a great move. He chased and coursed Lewis Hamilton, then he chased and caught Carlos Sainz, and to a great finish to P3. I want to know who Jim is, who's 60. Go on. I think we should see Jim, who's 60, because that is a good birthday present for Jim, who's 60 today. As I said, Lance Stroll does have a broken. He's recovering from his broken wrists and broken toe, but he'll be thankful of the 2 weeks between now and Saudi Arabia. And I want to finish Aston Martin with a thought about this. Who has Fernando Alonso got most to thank for being on the podium and enjoying the success with Aston Martin? Lawrence Stroll? No? Well, yes, I mean, obviously. Laurent Rossi from Alpine, the boss at Alpine, who wouldn't give Fernando Alonso the 2-year deal and the money that he wanted, and has put as Fernando in this team where he's finding such, it's your 60, you don't look a day over 40.
Well, I am. Good. Yes, I am 60 today, and been a good day. Alonso, getting third, but the bad day was Liverpool beating Man United. But 1 out of 2 ain't bad.
All right. I'm sorry, Jim. Happy birthday, and nice over the radio that Fernando could wish you.
Yes.
It's the new 40-60.
Fantastic, yeah. Thank you very much.
Good. First of many.
I hope so.
I mean the podiums and your birthdays. Yeah. Happy birthday. Good. Excellent. That's Jim and his birthday. Thank you very much for going finding Jim on his 60th. Right, Haas. And you know what? They've got a quick car today, but, well, no, they didn't have a quick car today. They've got a quick car but they weren't able to show it today because Nico Hülkenberg got front wing damage early on and actually had to pit and replace it on his second stop. So Hülkenberg is out of the picture, and with a long stop to replace his front wing and nose. Kevin Magnussen was the only hard starter, dropped to 19th early on, and then worked their way back. Hülkenberg wanted to think about plan B, maybe moving to a 3-stop, but they couldn't do it. Actually, both 3-stopped in the end because they had the free stop under the free 3-stop under the virtual safety car. Hulk defended against Zhou Guanyu at the end, and while Zhou Guanyu was setting the fastest lap, Hulk got Zhou closed on Hulk to 0.7 of a second, but Nico Hülkenberg on his race return finished 15th, just ahead of Zhou Guanyu in the Alfa Romeo Sauber. No points for Haas, but I don't think they're too downhearted because they feel they've got a decent car, and if the sand blows correctly, kindly for them, then there are points to be had this season at Haas. So I think they're quite happy about things. AlphaTauri, poor Yuki Tsunoda was only a few seconds off a point today, and that's a bit sad because he kept following out. He essentially had the whole race behind Alex Albon and then wasn't able to overtake the Williams. So he followed Alex Albon into the pits as well, which only guaranteed, unless they were thinking that Williams were going to mess up their pit stop, that he was going to stay behind the Williams because Williams are still good in a straight line. So slightly odd there. But from the back of the grid, you've got to say a good effort for Nick de Vries, finishing P14. He came into the pits and rejoined P13, but he was left out under the virtual safety car, and that really did for him. He was a sitting duck. After that was Nick de Vries. Everybody passed him, and there was no chance of points. Not Nick's fault. But Yuki ran well in P11. Poor traction meant that he could only follow Alex Albon, and there was nothing really else he could do. He pit under the virtual safety car, but he couldn't close on Alex Albon and finished a second behind him. So Yuki 1 second off a point today and didn't manage to get it. But that means that point does go to Williams today. Hooray! Who have scored a point. I'm not going anywhere near this forklift because that looks like a pallet that's destined for a 777 freighter. And we've got another one waiting here. That's another Williams one. Can we get a safe place, Lee? Let's get a safe place. While you see what's going on here, I'll tell you about Williams' race. They have a good car, and that is really refreshing and good stuff. It didn't look great during testing, but Alex Albon was able to run P11 early on after a good opening lap, and then P10 when Lando dropped out. The virtual safety car came at a perfect time to defend when with the others around him, the likes of Yuki Tsunoda. As I say, he led Yuki Tsunoda into the pits and then stayed ahead. And as for Logan Sargent, it's really motivating him. They had a nice motivating message to him on the opening lap on the radio. They said, "Here we go, Logan. It's your first race, and we're going to do everything to make sure you have a good race today, so go for it." He got up to P13, spent most of the time in P13, and then he got Zhou, then Zhou got him back, but then he got P12 when Zhou stopped for the let's see if we can ruin Alpine's day by not letting them have a fastest lap trick, and then they finished 12th. So 12th and 10th in this Williams that wasn't fancied. It was meant by the paddock experts, including myself, to be one of the bottom two teams in the pit lane along with AlphaTauri, but it wasn't today because they scored a point. See, shows how much we know. Right, that is it. So they are that is all the teams. As we say, thank you very much for watching. We have the IndyCar coming up later this evening, so stay tuned for that. And it's the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix from Jeddah in a couple of weeks' time. I'm not at that race, so the notebook will be back at the Australian Grand Prix on the 1st and the 2nd of April. And we will end with a thought about F1 2023. There are 23 races. We've had one of them. There are 22 left. But you've got to say, Max Verstappen, the class act that he is, Red Bull, the class act that they are, who'd bet against him even at this early stage? See you in Jeddah and then Australia. Bye-bye.